Hey guys, coming at you today with a video all about the keto dry ingredients that I use on a daily basis to make all the different recipes on my channel, plus tips and tricks on getting the best deals on Amazon and maybe not on Amazon to hopefully help you stick to or get on track with keto in the coming year. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef. Been a chef most of my life, and I opened up a keto bakery in 2022. So if you enjoy this type of stuff, if you like baking, definitely hit the subscribe button down there. Putting out new videos every week. Today, I compiled a whole list of ingredients that I use in my keto bakery that I have on hand at all times to make just about every recipe that I've ever come out with. I broke it down into 3 categories. Doing this video actually prompted me to figure out my Amazon shop page. So now all these ingredients are in categories on my shop page. I probably will eventually do a whole series on kitchen products I use that I have bought from Amazon, along with a bakery tour video. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified when new videos come up if those are videos that you are interested in seeing. The first category is flours. Now, my main flour I use in most of my keto low carb baked goods is an unflavored whey protein isolate. I have been burned in the past. If you watch some of my old videos, I mention it, that I have bought like more expensive brands or just different brands, and I have had complete flops. I don't know if that was the particular recipe. That was when I was first starting out keto and trying to make recipes offline. So since then, I have stuck with PodoPure as a brand. It's not the cheapest, but it is one that I trust, and it actually has went down in price over the last year. So I always have unflavored chocolate, which Dutch chocolate, and creamy vanilla. They do have ones with sugar, so just make sure you check ingredients before buying, make sure you're getting the right one. But the unflavored whey protein isolate has 0 carbs in it. So that's one way that I make a very high protein, very low carb baked good. Other brands may have carbs in them, so I do always suggest PodoPure. I have experimented with some other whey protein isolates and it seems to work. One being the Now brand protein powder. I also bought other protein powders. I just haven't had the chance to experiment with them to make sure they work in my recipes. But if it's a good brand that you trust, it probably will work. I know people use Quest protein, and I've used Perfect Keto whey protein before, and it's worked. Whenever I have a new product that I'm adding to my Amazon, which I don't anymore, obviously, because I'm trying not to really stray from these core ingredients. I always go to usually the bigger container is usually cheaper, and I go to subscribe and save. And when I do that, I set it up for that month to send me, but then every month after that, you can skip it every time you don't need it. But you'll always be locked in at that subscribe and save price. So that's what I do for almost all my ingredients. The second flour that is always in my recipes usually is coconut flour. I have found you can swap coconut flour for bamboo fiber, which helps in more savory recipes, but for sweet recipes, coconut flour is way cheaper, but it is higher in carbs. Obviously, bamboo fiber has no carbs, but it is much, much cheaper. And if you're gonna get a brand on Amazon, I would suggest Anthony's just because that's a brand I trust, but Great Value organic coconut flour is my favorite and my go-to because it tastes the least like coconut. And I've found that different brands of flours can have different absorbency rates. So when I do my recipes, I try to stick with the same brands every time. That way I know it's gonna come out the same as every other time. And that's important when you're selling baked goods. You want the outcome to be the same every time so that your customer is happy with whatever they're buying over and over again. So I always just stick with the Great Value brand, but if you want to get one on Amazon, Anthony's is where I'd go. Bob's Red Mill is a popular brand, but it is so coconutty. Like, I used it in the very beginning and it just overpowered everything. So I don't suggest Bob's Red Mill. Now, as of recently, I've been working on more savory recipes, so I have been using bamboo fiber in a lot of my recipes. I always stick with just Zimmerman brand. It is not the cheapest, but I have found that different bamboo fibers absorb different amounts of liquid. So I try not to stray too much. I tried Modern Mountain, I believe it's called, and it is super fine bamboo fiber, but it had a different absorbency rate than the Zimmerman brand. Next is oat fiber, which I've been using New Naturals for quite a while now. When I first started keto, used Nutronics, I think it was called, but as I went on and kept reordering, it was changing. So I stopped using that and I just started using the New Naturals. Same thing with oat fiber, with the absorbency rate. The color sometimes changes. So I just try to stick with one brand. I don't use it too much anymore. I have used it a lot in the past in my old recipes. But bamboo fiber and oat fiber can also kind of be swapped out for each other. I think you might need, depending on your brands, you might need more oat fiber than the bamboo fiber in my recipes. But that's the problem with switching brands and swapping things out. Unlike regular flour, that all-purpose is all-purpose flour. Cake flour is cake flour, like from brand to brand. Some are maybe organic, healthier, stuff like that, but they're pretty much similar in the baking aspect. Keto, that's not the case. So I try to stick with the same brands over and over again. My other main flour that I sometimes use in crispy recipes is egg white protein powder, and then I use it in some recipes where you have to whip up egg whites, mainly my low carb, high protein white bread, and I think I have an angel food cake recipe that uses it. So you have to get one egg white powder that does not have any sunflower lecithin or added ingredients if you want it to whip up. So I suggest Judy's brand. That's the next best price that I have found so far. Again, the bigger bag you get, the cheaper it's going to be, and subscribe and save. Also, all these ingredients on Prime Deal days will probably go on sale also, or some of them will at least. If you're not worried about something to whip up, you can just get the cheapest egg white protein powder you can find. I wouldn't get anything with sweetener or gums or anything like that in it, but sunflower lecithin is basically a stabilizer that like makes it thick and like shakes and stuff, and it'll work in a baking recipe just fine. Only 3 more flours that I kind of have on hand for specific recipes. And really the arrowroot flour is more of a cornstarch substitute for cooking savory dishes, but I've also used it in the past for giving a little bit more of a gluten-y feel to cookies. Some cookies have cornstarch in them or something like that. So I've used that in the past for those things, but if you do get arrowroot, I like Bob's Red Mill. It's the cheapest. I use it to thicken all my gravies and stuff like that. So I always have arrowroot on hand. Another main ingredient that I use in every single baking recipe is xanthan gum. And I have recently come across that it's stronger than it was back when I bought it. I think I bought a lot back maybe 6 months ago from Great Value, and I had just run out and I bought it again and it was stronger. I made one of my old recipes and it was super thick and gloopy, even though I used the same amount of xanthan gum I always use. So I have now started sticking with just one brand, Anthony's. And someone just mentioned that they were out of stock. So she said she had good luck with micro ingredients with my recipes. So that is another brand that I trust. I use micro ingredients a lot for different ingredients. So those are 2 options for the xanthan gum. You can get any you want, but it may be stronger or less strong than the one I'm using, which can mess up recipes like doughs, which is like the hardest keto thing to get, a gluten-y kind of feeling dough. So if you want it to come out easy and just like mine, stick with the Anthony's brand. Another thing I use as like kind of a gluten replacement in some of my dough recipes is grass-fed beef gelatin. But I do not buy that on Amazon usually. If I do, it'd be the Now brand. But I normally get mine from Thrive Market. I can order a couple and get a discount and have it on auto ship, and that helps me save a little bit of money there. But just like the xanthan gum, I think Beef gelatin might have a variance between brands also, just like most keto ingredients. And then the last kind of flour I add to some things is whole psyllium husk. And that is to make things almost a little bit more dense and chewy-ish. Like I use that to take my chocolate cake recipe and make it into chocolate cake donuts, to make it a little bit more dense of a cake, because you don't want a soft crumbly donut. You want like a sturdy, kind of thick but still moist donut. I have not experimented with a lot of different fibers. That might be something that I start doing soon, because I know there's tons of different fibers on the market. It's an ongoing experiment. Even though I've been doing this 4 years, I still don't know everything and anything that can be swapped out and stuff. It'll be an ever learning experience, because there's no school for keto baking. I went to school for regular baking. So that concludes the main flours that I use in just about every recipe. Now we'll jump to like just extra stuff, and it's a lot of stuff that you can find at the store. Brands don't matter as much in these ingredients. It's just extra things that you need to make certain recipes of mine. So things like baking powder. I'm not sure how to say it. It's Gefen, Geffen baking powder. It's aluminum free and cornstarch free. So either way, it's going to have some kind of starch in it, either potato or rice, but I avoid corn. There have been some people that have said they have corn allergies, so I make sure not to have that in the bakery. Next is just a good cocoa powder. Obviously you can buy whatever you want at the store, but because I have a bakery, I buy it in bulk and it cuts down the cost for me. So a lot of the stuff I buy in either 2-packs or 5-pound bags or stuff like that, because I use a lot of it. So I use New Naturals organic Dutch processed cocoa powder. I buy the big 5-pound bag, and it makes it cheaper than buying small bags of cocoa powder. I haven't price compared to like the store, but I try to limit my trips to the store as much as possible because my bakery is in the lower part of my house. So I don't leave very often, and when I do, it's to go to the store pretty much. And I buy my perishable ingredients. So I use a lot of cocoa powder because I put my brownies on my website for shipping. So I bought a big bag of the cocoa powder. Next, something everybody uses, pure vanilla extract. I found the best deal I could. It's Dancy's Mexican Pure Vanilla. I buy it in a 2-pack because it's cheaper than buying just one at a time. But it is definitely delicious and the cheapest pure vanilla I could find. Another one-off ingredient is heavy cream powder, and I use that for my low-carb, high-protein white bread, and that's just to have an added fat. When you put fat into egg whites, it's easier if they're dried. So I use the heavy cream powder in that recipe specifically. I do sometimes use it for other things like making hot cocoa mix or a mocha mix that we take for camping. So that's something else I use it for, but it's mainly just for the bread recipe. Along with that is inulin, which I use to bloom yeast. It's really the only keto ingredient that will bloom yeast. You can always just use honey or a little bit of sugar if you want. The sugar is eaten by the yeast, but I rather just have the inulin, which I use a tiny bit at a time, and I use micro ingredients for that most of the time because I know the brand is good and I've never had a problem with it. Along with that is yeast for my bread, which I buy an active dry yeast. I usually buy Red Star. It's usually the cheapest. Sometimes I can shop around and find a cheaper price, but I buy that on Amazon, usually a 2-pound bag at a time because I go through it real fast. But I'm sure you can find a fine active dry yeast at the grocery store. Most of my one-off ingredients are for my bread, including cream of tartar. I buy Anthony's brand, a big bag of cream of tartar at a time. You can easily find a cheap one at Walmart. It'll all do the same thing. And the last thing is the Himalayan pink sea salt that I actually bought a brand on Amazon when I owned my brick and mortar bakery. I was testing my bread and it was coming out kind of grainy. Like you can kind of crunch the salt granules even though there's not a ton in there. So I went on the hunt for something that was even finer. Even though I got fine, it was still like crunchy in my bread. So now I buy BJ's brand, which is our big box store here. We don't have a Costco within an hour of us. We do have a Sam's Club maybe 35 minutes from us, but I haven't ventured into that yet. But so far, BJ's was the best that wasn't grainy, and it's a big container of it for a decent price. And I didn't even add on there baking soda. I very rarely use it. I think I have it in a couple of recipes. I use it in my cake recipes at the very end, but you can buy any kind of baking soda. And then the last category I have is sweeteners. And I'm gonna try not to go into too big a detail here. I do have a sweeteners video where I literally went through glycemic index, what sweeteners do what in baking, why I choose the sweeteners I do. So I'll link that up there for you. I want to keep this as what I buy and why I buy it on Amazon. So since the very beginning, I've used monk fruit erythritol blend. In the beginning, I called it monk fruit. I don't know when I realized it was mostly erythritol, but through doing all the research for videos and stuff like that, I realized that it was monk fruit erythritol blend. And now I say that in videos because people get confused. I used to only use Locanto, and it is superior product in the terms of like the graininess of the granules. It is more like regular sugar, but because I run a bakery and it is so high in cost, I have had to find the cheapest brand I could find. So I now exclusively use Duralife monk fruit erythritol blend. I use classic and the golden. And then there are sometimes I use like a packable brown sugar, and it does make a difference in recipes. So just keep that in mind if you're swapping things out, because there is more moisture in a packable one than in just a golden sweetener. So it can change the recipe if you don't use the specific golden sweetener I do. For my powdered sweetener, Locanto is definitely the most expensive. I usually use So Nourished. I could not find it on the Amazon products page, but if you go to my sweeteners and you can't find it, just try to type in So Nourished powdered sweetener. I buy it in big 5-pound bags because I use it for all my frostings, and frostings are something that you need powdered sweetener for. And then I do use it in my brownie recipe. So for things like actual recipes, you could just grind down the classic. I don't understand the whole math of it, how much. I'm guessing you'd have to use the same amount of grams of classic for the powdered, because that would make sense. But the cup wise is less. So I always have a powdered sweetener on hand because I don't have time to grind down classic sweetener. And then I just make so much buttercream and cream cheese frosting and all that stuff. I make everybody's birthday cakes, so I always have a bunch of powdered sweetener on hand to use. So Nourished is the brand that I've been sticking to. There might be cheaper stuff on the market. It is a monk fruit erythritol blend I usually buy, but any powdered erythritol will work for any recipe. Extra ingredients that I use specifically for certain things. I have powdered bocha sweet that I use specifically for coating things, like my Mexican wedding cake cookies, because I don't want that really crazy cooling effect that the erythritol gives, but it's not something that I have on hand all the time. And then the last sweetener that is specifically different than an erythritol based sweetener is allulose. And I have found through buying cheaper brands of allulose that not all allulose cooks the same. I found that some brands actually cook faster and brown faster at lower temperatures than others. So I have since not been searching for like the cheapest allulose brand because I want it to be consistent all the time and not have to think about it as much when, you know, I'm cooking allulose on the stove. So I always stick with Keystone Pantry, and because I'm a bakery, I buy the 20-pound box, and it's a decent price. Because I have Business Prime, if I buy a certain number of cases, I get another discount. Not much, a couple bucks on a case, but it's something. So I actually stocked up and bought 5 boxes because I do use it in my bread recipe, which is available for shipping. So I knew I would use it and I wanted to save a little bit more money. But Keystone Pantry does have smaller portions, but the price is more expensive than if you were to get a 20-pound box. Other than that, the only other sweeteners are specialty things. When sometimes I want to sweeten something a little bit more, I have liquid stevia, which I usually use now Better Than brand, and powdered stevia, which I use for specifically mostly frosting recipes because I don't want to add all that erythritol into a frosting. So I use as much as I need to get it a frosting, and to cut down the cooling effect, I add powdered stevia. You can also add powdered monk fruit to it. So I always have it on hand just in case I need it. Same thing with like flavored stevias. Some recipes I use, like especially ice cream recipes, I'll use like liquid vanilla stevia or liquid mint stevia or something like that to kind of enhance the flavors without using tons of extracts and stuff like that. So sometimes I use those, but not very often. Those are all the ingredients I have in my keto bakery, and you can make every single one of my recipes if you have these things on hand. Other little extras and stuff is different flavored protein powders, like sometimes I use keto chow in some of my recipes, or different extracts and stuff like that. But it's all stuff that I get here and there. When I got my brick and mortar, I ordered a bunch and I got a discount on Olive Nation, so that's what I have for a lot of my extracts. But mainly I just have almond, vanilla, and mint. Those are my big three that I have. And then some of the other ones I use for different things. And then for like my perishables, I don't buy a lot at the store. Mostly my chocolate chips, which are Bake Believe, I buy at Walmart, along with my eggs, cream, my low carb, unsweetened, so delicious coconut milk, sour cream, cream cheese, mozzarella, usually a whole milk mozzarella, some whole milk ricotta, and then just frozen fruit. And that's pretty much it. And some fresh fruit that I prepare and freeze. Same thing with like carrots. I'll grate them all, freeze them all, because you have to buy a whole bag and you only need like one carrot for a recipe. So everything I buy that's perishable, I try to save in some way with prepping it up ahead of time, putting it in a freezer bag, writing on it what it is. That way I'll have it on hand when I need it for a recipe. So I hope this video was informative and helpful to you. And if you do want to see my old brick and mortar bakery, I'll link up there my pantry bakery tour that I did in 2022. She went around in the bakery and showed you all the different ingredients. So if you enjoyed this video and want to help out the channel, please give it a thumbs up and leave me comments letting me know what you think, what you buy, if you have brands you like, or tips and tricks on how to save money. Let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. It's Amazon/shop/Ketoupgrade, and it has these lists all right there for you. By using my links, I do receive some commission on those when you order, but also if you go and just click on other things that you want to buy, or you have other stuff in your cart while you're on my page and you check out, I get commission on that too. So not just keto ingredients or my specific ingredients even that I mention, any ingredients you buy or anything else you buy. So it definitely helps out the channel, and I appreciate you all clicking my links and supporting my channel. Half of you aren't subscribed, so subscribe if you aren't. And as always, I'll be back with more keto, low carb recipes, informative videos, and yummy dessert recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto baking.